I also made one for this. Just because.
All right, Awesemo, here we go. It's your old pal Emac coming back to you. Second sport on a Sunday. Joined by T McB for this one, filling in for Aton, who is it Aton or Aton? Aton. Okay. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure. I haven't asked it. When then he always calls himself the Shander Show for his Twitter, which just messes me up even further. Because I've talked to him a few times, not on air, but I've never asked for the exact pronunciation there. I haven't done a show.
I tried to pull you into one of the movie chats we were having offline. We have them online when me and him, and then Max gets roped in, and then they take over to Twitter, and now they're in Slack too. So I was trying to tag you into one of the ones we were having the other day. One of these days, the four of us got to get on air and just do a movie show just for the hell of it after lock or something. I think it would be fun.
Well, as we're starting to run out of NBA games, that is going to be a distinct possibility. Today is the last two-game slate here for the NBA. We'll be talking about both of them. Of course, there are gigantic contests out there right now for both showdown games because we have about a 5-hour split between our Game 7 tonight and the Phoenix and Clippers starting off Game 1 right now, or not right now, but in an hour or approximately an hour. So glad you guys could all make it in, you gals too. Happy Father's Day to anybody out there who's celebrating. And like for baseball, we picked up a few extra fans that don't normally get to watch us on Sunday because, hey, my wife had the kids. I'm going to play some DFS was kind of a rallying cry in the chat. So welcome to all you fathers for your one day a year where you get to get out of jail free card. The rest of the time, you're just in the doghouse. You try to do what you want, but you're just in the doghouse. So key things that we want to worry about or discuss today are, and we'll break down the matchup here, but we do have two big components of this game that are missing. And now Kawhi Leonard is dealing with a knee injury of an unspecified severity. Most conventional thinking is that he is probably out for the remainder of the playoffs, though we don't know. They're playing it close to the vest here, and they have not specified if it's ACL, MCL, a meniscus, what a wrench knee, what have you. So
that would give a little insight into what might be going on if they do. So they're really close.
So there's no parsing of words on this one. We just know he's out today. And then Chris Paul is out in the health and safety protocol. Now, I hadn't looked anything in the last couple hours, but I was trying to find something on ESPN. I couldn't tell if he himself tested positive or if he was exhibiting symptoms or it was a close contact. Regardless, it doesn't seem to obviously that doesn't matter, but he's under those various instances. He is not available to play today, but that could speed up his return because I think and he had been vaccinated. So there's various levels of the protocol that you have to follow. But if you have been vaccinated, are not exhibiting symptoms and get 2 negative tests, I think over a 72-hour period or 100 hours, I forget what it was, but you can come back. Right. So it's one of those choose your own adventure.
I believe he did test positive, and I was just Googling to confirm it. It's like 2 days ago and kind of a questionable source on the first Google result there that I did. So I think he did test positive, but hopefully he gets back at least at some point. It would just suck if it was just the stupid protocol rule. I mean, I'm the biggest, social distancing and wear your masks and you continue to being safe and all, but let Chris Paul play these damn games. It's such a good spot and it's such a fun series that, we don't want to miss him. It sucks that Kawhi is going to be out. Hopefully he makes it back. I mean, I could see the path where if it's not too bad an injury where Kawhi just hero balls him his way into the lineup if they need him, if it gets to a Game 7, something like that. Like I could see that pathway for a guy like him, but if they don't need him, I don't think we see him by any means.
Every time I think about this, or now James Harden had it was a hamstring strain. So, different severities and all this, but every time I think of somebody playing hurt and making it worse, I think of Kevin McHale way back in the 80s when medicine was garbage. And then I also think of Isaiah Thomas. Funny enough, both were Boston players.
Sure.
But Isaiah Thomas now he already had some hip issues, but he basically, really did not do himself any favors by playing. Yeah. So I never, it's just sort of like, should you come back? What's going on, etc. So it just makes it hard. So a question here from D. Owens 89 asking, can we discuss flyers? or dart throws, perhaps like Eton Moore, Javon Carter, Kaminsky. Yeah, at first that's what I thought too. I'm like, wait, Philadelphia is still not in. Isn't it Montreal and Vegas playing today or something? So that was my first step. Yes, I'm still playing playoff hockey. No slates off for your old pal. But that
really is true out there, people.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about those guys. But the other people that are going to be missing, Bruno Fernando out for suspension, leaving the bench during when he shouldn't have. Bogdan Bogdanovic dealing with a knee issue. Now, this is not his bad knee; it's the other knee. So, I suspect he will play. We'll have to see what's going on with effectiveness. Trae Young dealing with the sore shoulder. We know that. No surprise there. He's got that special tape that's been taped up for a few games now. So he's going to play. And then Joel Embiid dealing with that partially torn meniscus. His last two games, he's played 38 and 39 minutes. We still have Danny Green, who's out. This will be the fourth full game that he has missed. He's with the calf injury. So those are our moving parts today. There's quite a few. So starting off here with the Clippers side of things, the pricing is relatively reasonable. They've now had 3 games without Kawhi. So the salary algorithms have had time to adjust somewhat on these. It's to different degrees on the different sites. Paul George, I still think, is arguably one of the best plays on the slate. No question about it. The interesting thing we have here is Phoenix has not played in a week, and the Clippers played 3 hardscrabble rock fight games against Utah where they were just playing massive minutes. So we have fresh legs versus, wow, we weren't supposed to be here on the road. So I would expect Phoenix to win today based on that, but we don't know because we haven't really seen them without Chris Paul. The other wild card, in my opinion, is going to be Zubac, because he was basically rendered moot in that first series. He had one game where he played about 15 minutes, and then otherwise he was they were picking on him in the pick and roll, and he couldn't defend it, and was just like, okay, well, whatever, we're not going to do that, because if we put another shooter out there, maybe we can take Rudy Gobert away from the basket somewhat, or at least get him out of position, then get the extra pass where they can get an uncontested shot or kind of try to have somebody drive on that third pass from the baseline if they swing the ball around. That's not going to be the case with DeAndre Ayton. Now, Ayton is not anywhere near the defender of Rudy Gobert's stature. He's pretty solid. Sure. However, he's about as mobile, but his strength is not protecting the rim. So it's a little different, and they may be content to put Zubac out there to have another rebounder. So I think that's the first wild card. I'm turning it over to you. To me, he could re-enter the mix for 12 to 14 minutes, which is not a lot, but it's more than the 4, 5, or 6 he had gotten over the last few games. And he could get, 6 points and 6 rebounds rather quickly, sure, which could have him be a difference maker. What are you seeing now that we have an open canvas, missing 2 crucial players with an exhausted team and a fresh team?
Yeah, I'm with you on the take that I think it makes a lot of sense that the Clippers maybe come into this one a little bit sloppy, a little bit tired, and just Phoenix just takes them in terms of being able to run up and down the court with fresh legs, and just kind of by attrition just wears them down and opens up a big lead by the fourth quarter, even without Chris Paul. It seems very likely that we're going to see a just high volume Devin Booker game in this situation for sure. As far as the pivot point and a potential major pivot point for the slate, I agree with you. Zubac is interesting, right? We've only got him pegged at 10.7 minutes, which is a little lower than his overall playoff average, but would be higher, like you said, than what he'd been seeing recently. For the playoffs, he's averaging 13.6 minutes. If he gets north of that, or even if he gets around that, he's going to be relevant at 3,900 on FanDuel, 3,500 on DK. The 0.99 fantasy point per minute guy through the regular season. He was only 0.82 so far in the playoffs, but again, limited action, limited opportunity, and he's a guy who needs to have some counting stats in there to help him with his fantasy points. So I really think there's some upside there if we get him out there, and there's a clear path to it, right? There's a very distinct narrative where they're not able to handle DeAndre Ayton on the offensive side. He's chewing them up on the defensive side on the glass. They just need a body in there. And Zubac is going to be that guy. So I think it makes a lot of sense that we're going to see some extra minutes. I don't know that it cracks 20. If it cracks 20, it's a home run of a play. I think it's probably going to be falling in the mid-teens where you're going to be in that questionable zone of, all right, he's out there. He's going to get a decent amount of run where he could hit value and could deliver an upside. It's just the difference between, are we going to get just around value, or are we going to squeeze out a few additional points and get a nice upside game for our money? So that's really going to be a nice swing point. I built one lineup for this slate, like I said, just for fun, and he's in it. So that's where I stand.
And I see some people with their thoughts being, well, come on, in the 3 regular season games, he averaged 24 minutes per game. Those are regular season games. This is entirely different here. And each possession is high leverage, etc. So you can't draw as much from there, especially when we saw Coach Lou. So just perfectly fine to just say, we're going to do this. So that'll be interesting. But I suspect he re-enters the rotation. On the other side, we will likely see Ayton and Saric split the center minutes once again. It's unlikely that they'll play next to each other. You could see lineups without either one on the floor, just if the Clippers are going to end up going small. Do you have any fear of Ayton being played off the court?
It's a possibility, but I think he's going to be good enough out there, and they're going to try and go small and just run and keep him out. So yeah, there is a narrative for more Saric minutes, and played off the court is strong, right? To me, that just means he's getting 22, 24 minutes and just not able to stay out there, not able to be an important cog in the machine. And I think he's gonna. Could he take a haircut in his minutes because of it? Yes. Is he going to be out there down the stretch? I would imagine so. Like, I don't think it's going to be that severe. And we're talking about a pretty good point per minute guy, 1.08 points per minute throughout the season, 0.88 for the playoffs, but there's plenty of upside there. 6,500 on DK, 7,000 on the FanDuel slate. I think there's plenty of room for both players to at least make some value. Like you said, they're not going to be out there together, but Saric doesn't really cost anything. 3,600 FanDuel, 3,300 power forward and center eligible over on DK. So I think he makes some sense as a value play there as well if there's an expectation of additional minutes. Alex has him pegged for 33.5 for Ayton and 12.5 for Saric, roughly. So, yeah, that's going to be most of the center minutes. I think it adds up to – it's actually 0.3 and 0.7, so it adds up to 46. So they're going to be chewing up most of the minutes. It's going to be one or the other one of them out there for the entire game, basically. So I would be perfectly content playing Ayton. I don't really sweat it. I don't worry about it. And I think Saric is on the board as a value.
All right, and let's see. Terance Mann. So I went to bed at halftime of that game on, I guess, Friday, and Utah was up by 20, and I was excited because, we're going to have the final 2 games late on Sunday. And then when I woke up and I looked to see, it was the Clippers playing Phoenix, and I'm like, wait, what? Did somebody release the wrong article? What happened? Like the obituaries for the notable people sometimes get released early because they're sitting out there. It's
like a Dewey wins kind of situation.
Exactly. It was like, wait, and then I'm like, what happened? Terance Mann scored how many points? I'm like, I missed a great show there. It was worth sleeping through. But hey, it was. Sorry, I missed that one. Do we see Terance Mann even with a quarter of that production today?
A fifth or a quarter, maybe, just because the minutes will be there. I think he's going to see plenty of time on the court. But yeah, that's a career high for a guy who's a second round pick. We're talking about a $4,400 price tag on FanDuel, $49 on DK. So I think there's value there for him in terms of DFS. He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to have that monster ceiling game at that price. And he's going to be out there for 30-ish minutes. So there's certainly upside for him to, a quarter of that point total is fine. I think he could definitely do that. But is he going to have that crazy outlier shooting game again? Is he going to score 39 points again? Hit or break his career high? I don't think so. It's certainly on the table in the range of overall possible outcomes, but 28% ownership on the FanDuel slate, 30% on the DK slate. You got to go somewhere. But I don't know. That's getting a little uncomfortable for me, relying on a guy that chases career highs again. So yeah, you're getting minutes. Yeah, you're getting value, but you're getting everybody else along with you there. So I'd maybe like to spread that around to some of the value guys that somebody asked about before. I think there's interesting wings in the other game, the Philly Atlanta game that you can get to. There's some interesting guys in this one as well. So for me, it would probably be a spread around a little bit. Maybe let the public have the Terance Mann shares and get under the field on that and see where else I can get that's interesting.
All right. That's kind of interesting. Tyler, producer, says Terance Mann, top 5 all-time playoff performer. He's willing to fight anybody over it as well. So you guys can go see him out in the alley after the show. So let's keep bouncing around. It's a little more spirited, a little more fun this way. Cameron Payne, does he play over 30 minutes? Does he start? We shall see. We know that Devin Booker, phenomenal play. I believe he's 32 over there on Yahoo, if memory serves. Outstanding option. He was the DFS Building Block Yahoo Player of the Day. It's a free article you guys can get from the payroll for all of the basketball games. Don't worry, we're going to talk a little No House Advantage. They are the sponsor of the show here. We'll get into some props here. What are you thinking are reasonable minutes for a campaign? Basically, in about 140 minutes this playoffs without Chris Paul on the court, he scored 1.17 fantasy points per minute. But that doesn't mean he's going to walk right into that as well, because we know that Booker is going to have the ball in his hands a lot. How are you? I think we have to ride with the chalk, $4,000 on DK. I think you want him in 80% of your lineups. Personally, I'm just playing on DK today. But
yeah, and I think you're getting 28 to 32 minutes, something like that, and plenty of run for the price. 5,000 on FanDuel, 4,000 on DK is almost hilarious. Yeah, he's a virtual lock on the DK slate just based on the minutes and the points upside. Going back in a deeper sample that includes the regular season, going back to the trade deadline in games without Chris Paul, he was a 1.11 DraftKings point, actually 1.11 point per minute on both sites. So you're getting reliable production, but like you said, I don't think he necessarily walks into that exact same role, that exact same amount of production, just because Booker's going to take 30, 35 shots in this game. He's going to be doing his thing as much as he wants to out there. And then Cameron Payne will be the secondary guy as far as the ball handling and as far as, taking any usage that he wants. I think that this is going to be an upside game for Booker. If I had to bet my life on anything to happen in this game, I think that would probably be the spot I would land just based on the total volume. But I think Cam Payne makes a fantastic DFS play for these prices on this slate, unless we get some kind of news that he's going to be seeing like a 22, 24 minute share somehow. And we're going to see like a Javon Carter or somebody like that jump up. So I think that it's probably pretty safe. I think that it's very logical based on what we know right now, unless something changes. Yeah, fire away with a ton of shares.
All right, this guy named Jason Floyd in the chat says, hey, I'm an FSU fan. I've seen quite a bit of Terance Mann college games. Never saw that kind of offense from him.
There you go. Take it right from the source. Guy's been following him for years. Probably his biggest fan. Love it.
All right. Reminder, guys, if you have not hit that like button, please do. We have over 800 of you watching, just 90 likes. Come on. Let's get us up to 150. That should be an easy push now.
I always take like the polite, friendly approach. I don't like to badger people for likes, whether I'm hosting or being an analyst. But like, if we're trailing behind that, let's just talk about getting thumbs up for the next 5 minutes and skip basketball. Or should we go into basketball picks, assuming that the likes are coming?
I think we could. 5 Yahoos pointed thumbs down. Come on, really? I'm not even supposed to be here today, and you're giving me your thumbs down. Oh, that hurts. That leaves a mark right here, right there, right on the heart. So, reminder, we have the Awesemo podcast network. If you guys have not yet done so, you can leave a review on any of our podcasts, on any platform. Put your Awesemo username or your social media handle, such as your Twitter account, and we're going to put you in a drawing. Every Friday, we will draw 1 month of Awesemo, or the prize will be a 1 month Awesemo premium subscription. Right now, there are still less than 100 people that are in this drawing. So you could wait, use 5-star reviews on multiple platforms, get multiple entries into this drawing, and have a chance to win a month of Awesemo Premium. So odds are on that one, if you did 3 or 4 different reviews, got yourself in there, you'll probably win one throughout the year. 52 weeks worth of drawings. It's a pretty good deal. You're crazy not to jump in. It's the best opportunity we have, giving away a full month. It was only a week. we said, well, let's make it a month. Let's get some interest here. So you guys can check that out. If you want fit 25, let's go 25% off. I was going to say 15. Let's make it 25% off. Any 1 week Awesemo all access package. Use the promo code NBA Live before lock. They'll know you heard about it from this show, and we will appreciate that. Our appreciation to you will be dropping 25% off of the price. Terry, what else do you want to discuss from this game? I feel like a Marcus Morris senior revenge. We haven't had a good revenge game. You and I can't talk about Boban. He's not in this series, but we can talk about revenge. How are you feeling? In all honesty, Marcus Morris, probably the number 2 scoring option, which I'm sure much to the chagrin of most Clippers fans, how the hell did that happen? But here we are, unless it's Reggie Jackson, as Clippers fans are once again saying, how the hell did that happen? So what are you thinking of the non-Zubac, non-Paul George Clippers here? And don't worry, guys, we have 35 more minutes to tip off. We have a whole nother game to talk about. We got time.
So you're talking to a Knicks fan who, for at least like, what was that, maybe 3/4 of a season, a half a season up to the trading deadline, saw Marcus Morris as our primary scorer. So yeah, as a secondary scorer, hey, why not? Good luck, Clippers. You don't love the player. You don't love the general idea that he's going to have a monster ceiling game. But just looking at our boom bust board, what I do really like, what stands out is the leverage on him. He's getting massively under-owned for his probability of being in our optimal lineup in our simulations. So that's a target for me. 6,400 is probably priced about right on the FanDuel slate. 5,500, you get him at both small forward and power forward on the DK slate. It's a guy who was a 0.81 fantasy point per minute player over the course of the season, down to 0.68 for the playoffs. Again, just teams play differently in the playoffs. You see a little bit more focus on the primary scorers, and that hasn't necessarily been his role, but that's something that we could see change, and we could see that point per minute shoot up a little bit. So I think there's upside in Morris. He doesn't have like a massive boom score. I think it's just going to be a game where he's going to come in, deliver the 35, 38 minutes, and give you essentially his mean projection that we have on the site. If he gives you a little bit more, you're thankful for basically every point that he provides because you're getting him at such positive leverage. So I think he's a strong play despite the meh nature of the player. Maybe we talked about Mann. Patrick Beverley could see a handful of minutes, could see some time late in the game. Very, very cheap. We've got him projected out at 22 minutes, and he doesn't really pop on the tools. So he'd be kind of more a mix-in value type of a guy. I think there's certainly value in Batum, who also looks like he's going under-owned, going to play most of the entire game. We saw him get some upside, grabbing a bunch of stocks. I think he had 5 stocks in the last game. So there's the counting stat upside. If he hits those targets again, he could see an upside game. And the cost is, he's around the same pricing as Morris. 6,200 on FanDuel, getting him at the other forward position. 57 on DK, getting him at the same at both forward positions. So you can mix and match between those two guys. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with playing them together. They're both going to be out there plenty of time in the game. So I think there's interesting pieces there that are going under owned. So those are some of the guys that I'd be looking at instead of those Terance Mann shares, even though they're more, I'm just paying up to buy into some of that pricing differential, and then just give my shooting guard shares to kind of the more obvious shooting guard plays who I believe are much, much more talented players than Terance Mann. So that's kind of how I'd be looking at that specifically in terms of the Clippers, but also kind of across the slate.
All right, let's talk a little bit about betting props here. We've got the Awesemo.com props tool. So I'm going to drop that link into the YouTube chat. We've got a couple here from this game. Cameron Payne over 6.5 assists. Currently, the Awesemo projections have him at 7.37. That is a 64% win probability with a 40% ROI. Did I do that math off my head? No, I took it straight off the Awesemo odds prop tool, which is very, very helpful because not all props are created equal. They they'll juice the under or the over significantly depending on what they've chosen the line to be. So even if you see something that has like an 88% chance of winning, it may only have a 20% ROI because you're having to pay so much to get the side that you want for that. So this is a good way to let Awesemo do the heavy lifting and the math for you. Are you feeling the over or the under for Campaign at 6.5 assists?
Campaign at 6.5 assists?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Looks like the boss has him over that pretty nicely. So I'll ride with the boss on that one because I'm not projecting it myself, and I'll take the over. Alex has him at 7.37.
Exactly. Here's the next one from this game, and then we'll start talking about our afternoon game, or our evening game. I mean, we have Paul George, 29.5 points. Now, Awesemo is projecting him for 30.13. That to me is a stay away. But how are you feeling tonight? Is Paul are we going to see some lead legs with Paul George? Is he going to get there because he's going to take 28 shot attempts or field goal attempts? What are you thinking here for Paul George? 30 points. That's quite a milestone. It's his 4th game in a week.
Yeah, that's a lot to ask from the guy. Coming off the injury is well in his past at this point, but it's still a thought. Got to be in the head as far as wear and tear, as far as endurance goes. So there's a question about that. But overall, just if you're talking about player in spot, could he hit that? Absolutely. And that's kind of how we're seeing it on the board. It is leaning more in favor of the under. Looks like about a 57% on our no house advantage board to come in for the under on 31.5. So I think I would lean that way on 31.5. What was that the same that you said, or did you say 30.5 though?
It was 30.5. When I pulled the information, it was 30.5. It may have ticked up or down.
I'm just pulling up the one that we have up for our no house advantage. So over there, it's a 31.5 line, and Alex has it under that. But Alex has it over the 29.5 that you said before. So it depends on which one we're looking at.
Yes.
But if we're thinking in terms of juice and everything too, it's probably more of a stay away spot. Gun to my head, do I think Paul George is going to break it? Just personal? Yeah, I do. I think he's going to get there.
All right. Well, that you said the magic word, no house advantage. Let's talk about our sponsor for just a minute here. We've got No House Advantage of putting a different spin on daily fantasy sports by offering player prop contests across the NBA, MLB, PGA, soon to be NFL. This is exclusive peer-to-peer platform. You know what that means? It means we play against other gamers, not the house. Therefore, there is no house advantage. They will post their props. We choose up to 10, depending on the contest, but today it's you choose 10 answers. You rank them with confidence points, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And if you get your prop right, you get those points. That's how you score. That's how you beat the other players. They've got some head-to-heads, 50-50s in there. They got some GPPs. More often than not, you're going to see a little bit of maybe not necessarily overlay, but reduced rate. The contest is not going to be completely full. They're doing that intentionally. They're just trying to get people to come over and play on their site. How else are they trying to get people to come over and play on their site? Well, they're saying if you use the promo code Awesemo with your first deposit, they will match you up to $20 in No House Advantage cash, which will go into those contests first. And then Awesemo is actually giving you projections, and not just projections for their site, for free, mind you. We're actually cranking out the top 500 optimal lineups for you. So today, Lou Williams is popping there pretty high on the, I believe it's under 3.5 assists. Do you happen to have that one up? I'm going to pull it up. We'll put those links into chat there in a second. But transitioning to our other game, Lou Williams.
Looks like 2.5 on the no house board as the over for assists, and we've got him under that.
And we're saying that's one of the best plays on the slate. That's a 10-pointer, if you will. How are you feeling about Lou Williams? How are you feeling about Trae Young and his sore shoulder? What else do you have for us as we head towards Atlanta?
I have no concerns about the idea of Trae Young taking upward of 30 shots, 50 shots. This game could be on the board for Trae, depending on what he's making. But yeah, I have no real issues with the shoulder. We've seen him perform with it, outperforming his season-long point per minute rate, just barely 1.31 in the playoffs, 1.28 for the season. So just a monster player. I think there's plenty of scoring volume there. If the shot's falling, you know what you're getting. Doesn't look like the field is massively over on him. It's over a little bit in terms of compared to his optimal lineup appearance rate on the boom bust board here. So he's drawing a little bit negative leverage. We're talking about one of the best overall options for that upside game, one of the more likely guys to deliver you a 50-point game in terms of fantasy points. So I think you can fire away with Trae Young there. I think Bogdan news is going to have a trickle-down effect on what the minutes look like for Danilo, consequently Lou Williams, potentially some of these other guys, the Solomon Hills and the Tony Snells of the world, if you want to mix them in. And then Kevin Huerter maybe trickles up to, approaching the 40 minutes, depending on game flow, depending on how things are going. So the Bogdan news is pretty big for some of those guys, but those are also guys that I would consider in terms of looking for some other shooting guards instead of Terance Mann. Particularly if we get the Bogdan out news, I would start looking at some of the guys like Lou Will to maybe get more minutes than we've got him projected for, in which case I think he could pick up some additional value, particularly over on DK where he's only 3,400, getting him at both guard spots. Kind of interesting over there. So that's definitely, there's some news dependency there. We saw Gallinari get, I think, the entire fourth quarter the last time after Bogdan went out very early in the fourth quarter. And I think that would be on the table for him, particularly if he's shooting well. If that shot's falling, they're going to want him out there for more than 30 minutes today. So I think there's a path to upside for Gallinari here. It's an interesting spot. He's drawing ownership as well, but not in the raw terms, the significant amount of ownership that we were seeing for a guy like Terance Mann. It's another spot where you're paying a little bit more to do it, but I think he makes some sense as another one of those wings that you can maybe pivot in instead of Mann, and then grab the more expensive shooting guard or grab a mix-in shooting guard.
Clippers starting lineup: Reggie Jackson, Terance Mann, Paul George, Nicholas Batum, and Marcus Revenge Morris.
There you
Sr.
go. So
no Zubac. I still think he's going to be good for 12 to 14 minutes. I'm comfortable with that. I have no issues. I just because everybody else has played so many minutes, I think some of those other guys are going to get some more minutes. We'll talk a little bit more about the cheapies when we circle back around, because I know you guys want to know specifically about Luke Kennard and others that we didn't hit on, Saric, etc. But let's go through the heavy lifting of this game here. For another prop that we have here, we have the over-under on assists for rebounds for Mr. Clint Capella is sitting at 11.5. Awesemo is projecting him for 14.1. That's a 77% likelihood that he gets that, 36% ROI. His last 4 games, 11, 8, 13, and 16. And I do believe he led the league in rebounding this year. Someone told me.
There you go.
It's pretty good. Seems reasonable. I think I'm going with the over.
I like
against
it.
Embiid.
I think I would go with you on that one. I like it.
The interesting one. Now, I don't know if this one's still up, but somehow there was a Tobias Harris 10.5 rebounds. The under is what Awesemo says at 7.5. That's an 88 projected probability for win. He has not topped 5 in his last 3. Only in game 1 did he have 10 of this series. I think that's just an error. They probably won't let you get that much down on that one.
Yeah, it looks like that one
feels like a limit out if it's still posted.
Yeah, I would imagine that one's probably not wherever you saw it anymore. On the No House board, he's at 6.5, which seems a lot more reasonable. Mm-hmm. Alex still has him going over that, so I think that's a interesting spot if you're playing over there. But yeah, 10.5 seems a little untenable. You're talking about a ceiling rebounding game there, which doesn't seem like there's a specific narrative or anything like that we know of that would create that situation for him where he would see that outlier rebounding game. So I don't see it.
And it's now 7.5 across the board. So that's one of those things. If you kind of set alerts or look at stuff, you can find occasionally someone will post an odd one. Tyler said it's still up there on, how do I say this? You could bet some points. See what I did there? The YouTube algorithm doesn't know that I just mentioned the name of if you reverse that, flip it.
I got
a wagering site there. That was for the audience, because they don't realize that we can say DraftKings and FanDuel all we want, but when we start saying the other ones, that gets flagged in the algorithm because, gambling and all of that, because that's bad. Okay, whatever. Shame. Any other? I mean, this is the 7th time we've seen this matchup. There's not much else we can unearth from these.
Yeah.
Ben Simmons probably going to miss some foul shots. Embiid's knee may or may not be sore. Wait, let me rephrase it. It's going to be sore. It may or may not impact him. Furkan Korkmaz and Seth Curry are going to get their minutes determined by who's putting the biscuit in the basket. We've seen that all before. Tobias Harris is the secondary scoring option. Ben Simmons probably going to do some rebounding. Probably won't get double-digit assists. He will be playing defense on Trae Young. Trae Young going to be doing Trae Young things, including at least 1 3-pointer from the logo. Anything else? They did that on Friday. It was an amazing shot. Yeah. What do you feel that we can mention for this one? I saw Dwight Howard's name pop up. Yay, he might play 12 minutes. He might.
Yeah, if you're looking for 10 minutes.
Yeah,
I don't think he's even like at 4,000 on FanDuel. You're not getting much. 31 on DK. I guess you could squeeze a little bit of juice out of that, maybe, but you're really, really walking a tightrope there. GPP only for sure. I would never couldn't possibly imagine playing that in a cash game here. I just don't see the upside unless you're getting that MB just completely. If you want to play that narrative of the knee just completely goes, then sure. But again, you're talking about a very, very specific happenstance. That's not the kind of stake I like to put in the ground, even when I'm making tournament plays. I like to have, somewhat probable, somewhat realistic things and storylines for the game that just maybe isn't the most likely, maybe isn't the one that most people are thinking about. I don't know that we need to go to those kind of extremes. So it would be a total tournament dart throw. You're not even really getting leverage. It looks like the field is going to be around the same amount at which he comes up optimal. I don't love it. Not really for me.
And then let's see, balanced or stars and scrubs. I don't think you can build a balanced lineup today. Depends what you think is balanced. You have reasonably priced Devin Booker, but he's a star.
I guess it depends more on how
minutes versus maybe taking zeros or people that are going to play. So find people. But is
Tobias Harris a star on this slate, or is Tobias Harris a mid-range guy?
Well, he will be in the closing lineup. Find players in the closing lineup. That's
a good approach to doing it. Yeah, the lineup that I built has, I guess I would call it a stars and scrubs because it's got Batum and Crowder.
If you have Zubac, you're going stars and scrubs.
And Zubac, right. Yeah, so that's stars and scrubs. But, I don't know. I mean, it's not super crazy starsy either. It's just the way that you can put these lineups together is just kind of naturally you're playing a couple of the good guys and then a lot of the rest of the guys are all basically scrubs. It's just not much to choose from. It's also why I don't like these 2-game slates.
And it's the last one. It gets pretty thin after this. The Suns, I can't remember if I said it or not, they're starting Payne, Booker, Bridges, Crowder, and Ayton. No surprises there. Saric, I feel we know is going to play. So I don't think he's quite in that scrubs mold. But he's not that. Zubac could still see 6 minutes. We don't know for sure. I'd like to think 14. But there's some uncertainty there. I think we're going to get 12 to 14 from Saric, is my guess.
Makes sense. Yeah, it definitely makes sense with the Clippers going small. I think there's a narrative for him to be out there a little bit more, like we said. But I don't think, again, that it would be anything overly tragic for any Ayton shares that you might have in either. I think it would be a minor haircut for him. Saric maybe picks up a few extras, so makes some sense.
Your gimme bet of the day for No House Advantage would be the Cameron Payne, like all of them. Cameron Payne, 2.5 assists. We're projecting 7. Definitely make that a 10-pointer or a 9-pointer. Cameron Payne rebounds 2.5. We're saying 4. I would definitely take the over on that one. Cameron Payne points 8.5. We're saying 16.5. Definitely take the over on that. So however many Cameron Payne bets you can put in or choices on No House Advantage, put those in. Reminder, use that promo code Awesemo to get a $20 deposit match. And I'm now dropping in. We've built out the top 500 lineups here for you.
And just what I love about the way we do those projections, I can watch as you're reading those off, and I'm looking at the percentage, the odds that those are going to come in over. Every bet that Emac just read off there is over 93% likely on Alex, according to Alex's projections, to come through as the over. That's pretty damn good information, whether you're making No House Advantage lineups or putting in props elsewhere. That's really, really powerful stuff. So it helps. I think it's a great way to lay things out, and particularly for No House, where you can just grab those optimal lineups too, is a pretty excellent way to do it. And I don't think enough people are taking advantage of it.
Yes, free is good.
Good way to build up a bankroll.
You win money on those sites, you play them on the others. We've said that all these smaller sites, well, in the non-DraftKings, non-FanDuel category, there's merit to playing over there. And guess what? You can withdraw and take that money and play in bigger contests elsewhere. But
I hear cash is fungible.
The withdraw is the important part. Not deposit, actually withdraw. That's always a goal here. So we got 16 minutes left. Let's see.
2 quick pieces of news for you that are not related. But Pete Alonso did hit a home run, which we were talking about before the show. And it looks like Kyle Schwarber just hit his 3rd. Oh, also kudos to the person who wished me a happy Father's Day at the beginning of the show. That was a funny line in chat.
That's pretty good. Josh's dad, of course. How did we miss this one? Oh, horrible. Torrey Craig is a name that has come up quite a bit. We're now going circling the drain, if you will. Yeah, Tyrese Maxey. Who knows? We don't know what's happening with the rest of the Philly and Atlanta guys. The main reason I say we don't know is if Bogdan Bogdanovic plays and is reasonably effective, he's going to get the minutes, right? We have 6 games sample size of this. we've seen all the different scrubs have moments. So I don't know which one's going to happen today. Now we have a clean slate here, back with Torrey Craig. Javon Carter, who's kind of backing up campaign. I don't expect. I always expect at least one of Payne and Booker on the floor today. We're projecting Booker for almost 40 minutes.
Yeah. So
when he's not on the court, there's 8 campaign alone minutes. I don't know what to do with some of these other guys. I think you can play a smattering of them, but I mean, we've seen was it this playoffs or was it the end of the season that Torrey Craig broke a couple slates because he got a bunch of stocks and drained a few 3-pointers?
I want to say it was the end of the season, the regular season.
Yeah. So yes, he has those moments. We saw PJ Tucker do that 2 games ago, 13 points. The game on either side of it, none. So it's just like, okay, what happens here? But what do you think here? Because there's some legitimate plays and some legitimate questions here. I don't think Frank Kaminsky sees the court. That's just my guess.
Yeah, that seems likely to come through. That he would not see the court. I think that it makes kind of sense. Just looking at how Alex has it projected, he's got 17 minutes going to Torrey Craig and 11 and a half going to Javon Carter. And to me, it kind of makes sense to play it that way, even if that's Alex throwing darts as well, because he doesn't have a crystal ball into how these guys are going to break this down. We're taking our best educated stab at this, but even if you're breaking it down along those lines, that leads you to Torrey Craig, who is the better point per minute player. 0.99 for the playoffs, 0.90 for the season, as compared to Javon Carter, who's 0.61 for the playoffs, 0.79 for the season. That's a pretty big differential, and you're not paying a premium to get there in terms of your pricing. It's $300 more to get to Torrey Craig on the FanDuel slate, and only $200 more on the DraftKings slate, where you can move him around between guard and forward, which has a ton of value, where Javon Carter is the dead minimum, but you only get him at the 2 guard spots. So you open up additional flexibility by going to Craig. I think there's certainly justifiable narrative that he's going to get those minutes that the 16, 17 that we've got him projected for there. So yeah, I think he's the better play, but it could easily go the other way. It's not one that I'm confident in saying that it's Torrey Craig, but I think based on the supporting narrative that I just gave, there's more reason to play Torrey Craig and gamble on the minutes, basically.
All right. We have 10 minutes to go before we will be gambling. Well, I guess it's closer to 14, but
skill gaming, please.
Here? Who's counting? Let's see. Hip Hop Study says Reggie Jackson will be the X factor.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly on the board. It's certainly possible. I don't see why not. 0.86 fantasy points per minute for the playoffs, 0.86 fantasy points per minute for the regular season. Cost $5,500 on FanDuel, 61 on DK. Should be priced at exactly those prices on both sites. Reggie Jackson is who he is. He's also getting owned like Reggie Jackson on this slate should be. I don't know that there's much upside in terms of getting away from the field at all, but I definitely think we've got a clear path for Reggie Jackson to deliver at least his median projection, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. But I don't think he's a standout by any means. I think he's more plug and play, filler, and expect to get what you should get from Reggie Jackson rather than looking at him as like a massive path to a ceiling score. He does have some potential. I mean, it's not a 0 by any means on the boom score probability. Looking at Alex's board, it's there. He could have an upside game. I just think it's far more likely he lands around that median projection, especially with the idea that Paul George is going to be shooting as much as possible.
Okay, let's do a few questions here. Want to remind everybody again, you can get in with 25% off your first week of Awesemo with the old promo code NBA Live Before Lock. We're going to talk a little bit here about, wait for it, the Awesemo Hall of Fame. This is always a lot of fun. One of my favorite things to do because we're celebrating your success. That's what we like to see. You guys want to get in on the Awesemo Hall of Fame? All you got to do is go to awesemo.com/avatar, download that avatar, get that as your avatar on the DFS sites. When you have a nice win, doesn't have to be gigantic, life-changing money. We just want to see a good win. We're having fun here. Shoot us an email or a tweet to Awesemo HOF and Awesemo_COM, and we'll feature you here on the show, like we did here with one. Who's this guy? That name looks familiar. Oh, it's Awesemo. It's Awesemo. $50,000 win there. Congratulations, boss man. Looks like a little showdown golf. We've got Qua 2 here, who has a $13,000 victory. I'd love to have a $13,000 victory. That's a nice one. Cruising on to the rest of this. We got a little tweet here from Justo. They say, first place is a split, but I can't complain. Thank you to the Awesemo team. Best purchase under $20 I've made in my life. He has a nice little win there for $2,158.06. Oh, so does the Colts. That's Steve Bosser, head of Awesemo Finance, and also Team Awesemo on the data side. Your projections are coming from him as part of the team. And then, wait for it, rocking the swag. We have Grade A Picks here. He says, hey, I'm out here in Pennsylvania for the AAU tournament with my DFS bro. These shirts are awesome. Get yourself a set. I like to see that. That's a lot of fun. So, hey, you can rock the avatar on your DFS site. You can rock it on a t-shirt. A lot of fun there with that. By the way, if you finish top 3 in a contest, no ties, got to be a legit top 3. You get 30 days of Awesemo premium content if there are at least 5,000 people in that contest and you follow the instructions. Again, a massive tie for the Showdown slate that will celebrate it on the Awesemo Hall of Fame. But that's not worth the free month, but pretty much anything else is if it's top 3. Oh, Terry, what do you think here? Any Aiton Love? I think he's going to be on 30% of my lineups.
Sounds about right. I would, looks like that's on DK.
That's on DK. I'm trying to see where we have him at 30%. Jeez.
That's what I was about to say. I would maybe look to get a little above or below the field on that play. I would probably look above. I think there's, especially if there's an idea where people are maybe not rostering him thinking he's going to get run off the court. I think at those prices, like just based on the counting stats alone, he can blow through that price tag pretty quickly, pretty easily without too much fanfare. So I kind of like it. I think I would push up maybe a little bit above that ownership share. And then his FanDuel ownership share is pretty easy to beat. He's only 14% owned or 15% owned. Let's round up on the FanDuel slate. So to me at 7,000, that's a solid option at center. Talking about it. Are you talking? I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
I muted it because my dog.
There he is.
I'm moving it up to 40% as I'm putting in my final lineups. So we had 9 minutes to go. I have now made 60 lineups. I'm playing just DK. 88% Payne, 72 Booker, 65 George, 65 Zubac. Living and dying on this one, gamers. I will probably drop that down to about 50% when I make my next 40 lineups. And then Jay Crowder, surprisingly, at 52. But the price tag is nice, multi-position eligibility there. Marcus Morris, Nick Batum, I've got him about equal. And I got to get all the way down there to Joel Embiid. He is the 8th most popular player in my player pool, and that is the first player from our night game. I've got Trae Young and Embiid at 35% each.
Who, if you had to bet money on it out of those 2 stars, who puts up the bigger fantasy point total today?
Between Campaign and Devin Booker?
Our Campaign and Devin Booker 2 stars?
Maybe.
Embiid and Trae.
I think Embiid, just because he can get fantasy points in more ways. Once you started getting blocks, maybe he drops into 3 or 2. You get the double points. Trae doesn't get enough rebounds, averaging about 3.5. Trae has phenomenal. He was my contrarian player of the day in the DFS building blocks because he's put up 57 plus fantasy points in each of the last 3. But it's heavy on scoring, and he's scoring just over 30 points a game, and I think he has 12 assists per game in those 3. That's really the only 2 ways he's going to put up points. He doesn't get that many steals. He'll luck into them, but he's not really a defender. Maybe he jumps a passing lane here or there, or gets a deflection that gets credited as a steal. But he's really only going to score the points in 2 ways. Embiid's going to put him up across the board.
I like that analysis. I agree 99% of the way with you. The one thing I would say is that Trae is the one guy in the spot that could just say, F it, I'm scoring 50 real points tonight, and just do what he needs to do to score that regardless of how it's going. So there is that maybe idea of just, guys, get on my back, win or lose, I'm going to try and carry us there. And it would still all be based on that shooting volume that you're talking about and needing those shots to fall. So I just think maybe there's the more volume narrative. And then Embiid is a guy who kind of needs people to give him the ball, where Trae's going to be handling the ball the whole time. I do agree with you, though. I think if I was dangling over a volcano and had to choose one, I would probably land on Embiid. I think that's the safer of the 2. Just looking at, I just dashed off a FanDuel crunch real quick since we talked DK, how your lineups were going there. On FanDuel, across 275 lineups that got out while we were talking, came up 90. This is with no randomness, no nothing, just pure optimals off the top. 96% Cameron Payne, 86% Tobias Harris, 80% Devin Booker, top three. At the center position, 57% Clint Capella, 34% Embiid, 6% Ayton. So I was actually expecting a little bit more Ayton, and that's a spot that I think you could maybe squeeze for FanDuel value in tournaments. I think getting over the field is easy enough, and I think there's enough potential upside there that it's worth squeezing in some extra shares, strip a few away from Clint Capella, strip a few away from Joel Embiid, and maybe push a few extra Ayton shares in there. I think is maybe an interesting way to attack it for GPPs.
I am hardly getting any Ben Simmons. I'm coming in at half the field. 13%.
You think he's going to shoot that many free throws, huh?
I don't. That one's a little bit scary. But if you go back and look at his game logs, I was like, doesn't he have a 15 assist game or something? No, that was where end of the regular season. I think that was against the Wizards. He has not really done as much. I mean, he's had those close to poor man triple doubles where it doesn't quite get there, but gets a bunch of assists, rebounds, and a handful of more points than he seemingly normally gets. But
yeah,
his numbers were not. Yeah, his numbers are not that great. But I mean, that can, with a couple steals and blocks, that can get him to 50 fantasy points. But it's not with the regularity that one would have thought in this one.
Yeah, for the playoffs, I'm just looking at the overall per game averages. It looks like he's at 12.5 points, 7.9 boards, 8.5 assists, and a handful of stocks. I don't have that on the board for some reason here. Oh, there it is. 2.2 stocks. So there's certainly some narrative there that he's able to put together a great fantasy performance without scoring the basketball, regardless of what he does for the line. I think the one concern that you have is a close game down the stretch. Is he going to be out there for the free throw reliability if they're going back and forth, matching up with free throws and fouls back and forth? What's the upside there? And then is he going to deliver for you if he is out there? Is he going to be able to score any points in that situation? So I'd be a little bit skeptical maybe in terms of the overall upside, but I think he's a fine play, especially given the price. He doesn't have to do a lot. Another guy who's just at a price where he can blow through that value in not all that much time. So we've got him projected at 34 minutes and he's showing strong value. I think even if he comes in around 30 minutes, he could beat those prices. So I think there's plenty of reason to stick with Simmons and play him here.
All right, we have 4 minutes to go. If you have not put your lineups in, you need to do so now. I'm also mentioning that for myself. Let me just put a sort on here and I will upload and then we will look at it. Some of the discount dandies, I've got about 5% of Pat Beverly, 14% Saric. I've got 5% Kennard, 11% Javon Carter. So these guys are really just coming in as the differentiation on the core plays that I have. Let me throw out some high level stuff. 82% Campaign, 63% Booker, Zubac, 46%. Yikes. It's a lot. 52% Paul George. There's a chance that if Phoenix blows them out, that Ty Lue waves the white flag tonight, just says I'm resting George. We're just going to live to fight another day. That is very much in play. We didn't think they were going to beat. What does the rest of your center distribution look like around that massive Zubac share? Just curious. I assume most of that's 41% Ayton, 32% Capella, 31% Embiid. That's all under the field. John Collins, 30% is right at the field, but he's also power forward eligible for only 4% Saric. So so that's where it makes sense, right? I think that's important context around that play. It's not like you're playing him 40 some odd percent on FanDuel where you're only getting one. Most of those Zubac shares are going along with another center. You're playing the value, you're playing the free square there in the hopes that, well, free square in terms of if he gets minutes, if he hits that kind of outside expectation, that dart throw of minutes, then he becomes a free square, and that's what your play is. You're not playing him as your pure center play. Basically, I'm coming in about half of the majority of Philadelphia, with the exception of Embiid. And that's where it's all coming out in the wash. It's Simmons, it's Harris, it's Korkmaz, it's Curry. Literally all those guys, I'm almost half the field. So if they're 20%, I'm 10. If they're 30, I'm 15. Sort of. Yeah, that's very much how it came out on FanDuel in terms of those guys specifically. Came up with a ton of Tobias Harris in that optimal crunch.
So, he popped to an 86% share, and then it went to Jay Crowder. And then it's just, kicking around some other power forwards. But in terms of the Philly offense, limited share of Simmons at 30 some odd percent. Most of the Tyrese Maxey, Seth Curry, Furkan Korkmaz all under 5%. So it's interesting how that distributed. I might, if I was sitting here given time to manipulate things and move things around the board, I might be more inclined to push some of those shares up, maybe pick one of those guards and push some shares up and grab some more of it. But it's interesting how it came up in terms of the first couple hundred optimals off the board.
God, 46% Subash. I feel like Chris Spags landing on some of his ones that he's had up to lock, where he's like, I have how much John Collins? So shout out to Spags. I told him he did double duty last night. So Aton's wife is very, very pregnant. May not be pregnant at the moment. So we were covering for him. That's how I ended up on the show, etc. But and Spags ended up doing double duty last night. Otherwise, it was going to be Nolan who was going to hop on. Nolan doesn't do basketball. There was nobody left. I was at dinner and I was like, oh, sorry, I can't help, but I can today. So so shout out to Aton. Hopefully he gets a nice little Philly victory for him. Who are you rooting for of the remaining teams here that we have left? What finals would you like to see?
I'd honestly love to see Phoenix take the whole thing. I don't know why. It's just kind of there in my head that, like, out of all these teams, that's the one that I'm kind of pulling for. And I have no real explanation for it. I can't root for Philadelphia team. Sorry, Philly. Sorry, all my friends from there. I don't have it in me. Atlanta, I don't really love the team. Knock my Knicks out of the playoffs. So I can't really get behind them too much. I'm pulling for Phoenix here, and I don't really know why.
Yeah, I guess I've sort of landed on Phoenix as well. It's no real strong feelings there, but this has been a great series. We've had a great playoffs. We've had so many twists and turns with injuries and game 6s and game 7s and all this fun. So as long as that continues, I will be happy. But we do have one more show today at 1 hour before tip off, and that will be the second live before lock. You guys will definitely want to come back, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. You'll know when it goes live. I'm trying to look. Is the next game at 7 or 7:30? I closed on my wrong tab. Or pardon me, is the next game at 8 or 8:30? It is at 8. So there will be a 7 o'clock live before lock. And that is going to do it for us. So shout out to No House Advantage, sponsor of the show. Reminder, we do have those free projections and optimal lineups for you every day for No House Advantage. Sign up with the promo code Awesemo. They will match you up to your first $20 deposit in No House Advantage currency credit, which will come out of your account first into those contests. Nice little way to build your bankroll. And if you want to get in on Awesemo on the cheap, use promo code Live Before Lock. Get you 25% off 1 week subscriptions. That promo code's going to go away, so you may want to use it if you're still dabbling. Final thoughts, Terry, before we get on out of here? I'm going to go take a nap.
I like that idea. I woke up really early at my parents' house. I was down there for my niece's birthday. Happy birthday, Summer. Happy Father's Day, Dad. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Happy birthday to my sister, who's got her birthday coming up this week and is also doing a race between the Bahamas and Florida on her paddleboard. So I hope you don't get eaten, Kate. There's a lot of sharks out there.
All right. With that, good luck, gamers.
What?